Hey everybody, over the last couple of videos, we've been talking about the great things that you can do with Cisco Identity Services Engine. However, we've mostly been talking about the wireless side of the house. Let's not forget, you have a wired side in your ecosystem. You might say, David, I'm a wireless only shop. Why should I care about the wired side of the house? Well, you should, because that's another avenue, that's another vector that attackers can enter your organization. You do have devices that connect to your switches as well. What about the printers? What about security cameras? Other IoT devices that are not wireless that you have to plug into a switch to power them up, perhaps. You need to also protect the wired side of the house. And I'm sure you're not shutting those ports down all the times that you say you are. So you can use Cisco Identity Services Engine to protect the wired side of the house as well, to apply policy to those switch ports. That way you can verify when somebody enters a conference room and they unplug a phone or they unplug another device that's on the wall and they connect themselves in via Ethernet. Who is this person that just connected? Should we allow that device to enter our network? Those are the things that you should be thinking about. So it's not just the wireless side of the house. The wired side is a concern as well, and we can support that with Cisco ISE. So let's talk about it a little bit. Let's take a look at policy on the Meraki side as well as iOS XE. Let's jump into it. In our segmentation journey, the goal is to move towards SGTs, or on the Meraki side, adaptive policy. But before we do that, let's take care of the wired side of the house. Let's take a look at what we call access policies for these switches. So before we take a look at the switch ports, let's look at access policies. Now, if you're familiar with 802.1x on the wired side, maybe in the iOS XE side of the house, you know that there's commands that you configure on the switch ports, or perhaps you use some automation to deploy those commands to the switch ports. It's similar on the Meraki side, but what I'm falling in love with, honestly, after being a network engineer for a decade, is just dropping down a box or selecting a radio button or doing something very easy instead of dumping commands into a switch port. I kind of love how easy it is to do it on the cloud side of the house. So we're going to do it first there before we jump into iOS XE and take a look at a switch port. On the left side here, let's go over to switching, and then we want to select access policies. Here's where you're going to create your 802.1x settings. What do you want to apply on these switch ports? So we'll take a look. As you can see there, I have a couple of policies out there. Let's take a look at this user access policy. So we can see there's the access policy name. We have the authentication method. I can use Meraki authentication, or I can use my own Radius server. This is an ISE video, so this is ISE right there. Change of authorization, we want that checked. If you want to perform automated server testing, you want to make sure your server's up. This is a checkbox that you can check as well. And of course, enabling accounting using ISE. So let's scroll down a bit. You can see the servers there configured. We're using filter ID. Now there's a couple of host modes, and there's some differences here in the host mode. And this is where you can create different policies and apply them depending on what's connected on the other end of the switch port. Obviously, you could blanket one policy across every switch port, but you might want to pay special attention to what's connected on the other side. Is it a phone? Does that phone have another device connected to it? Is it an access point? What is connected to your switches? So there's a couple of different host modes. So single host, that's pretty self-explanatory. You have a single host. Multi-domain, let's say this is a phone. You have a voice VLAN and a data VLAN. One authentication each, and you're done. Multi-host, you have multiple hosts that are connected to the switch port and just a single voice VLAN. Well, actually, that's incorrect. It's the other way around. Multi-host, what's going to happen is that you connect one device, this device authenticates, and it pretty much lets the rest of the devices connect behind it. Multi-auth is multiple hosts that need to authenticate, and then there's a single voice VLAN as well. So as you can see there's a difference in these host modes. So you want to select what's appropriate for the device that's connected on the other end, or devices. So we'll leave this alone. We'll leave it in multi-host. Pretty much if we have voice VLAN there, critical off VLAN. So let's say your radius server explodes and you need a data VLAN, a voice VLAN to pop up as an emergency. Well, you can do that here with critical off. You can plug in those VLANs. Now, when you plug those VLANs here in on the cloud side of the house, there's going to be that automated testing that happens to make sure that your radius server is up. So when you plug VLANs here, that radius server testing will happen. So just something for you to be aware about. If you have a guest VLAN, let's say your devices cannot authenticate via 802.1x, they can authenticate with MAC address, MAB, then pretty much you can drop them down into a guest VLAN. Or let's say something happens, they can't authenticate, and you just want to put them in a certain VLAN to give them emergency access. This is the failed off VLAN. And this is where I put VLAN 99, which is my quarantine VLAN. That's something that you can dump users into a quarantine VLAN, or let's say there's something else that you're doing, checking posture, and they fail. You can move them. That's where change of authorization comes in. Now, radius caching, as you can see there, that's an option. Pretty much what happens is that, let's say your switch is, your radius server is no longer connected. Your radius server explodes. What we're doing is we're caching that information on the switch so there can be some authentication, right? Something happening in case of a disaster. So there's still business continuity going on. So that's where radius caching comes in, and how long is that caching. So as you can see here, I love me some drop downs because you can click around, you can get this going. That's one of the things that why I love cloud management, because it's very easy to use. Not that it's much harder on the iOS XE side of the house, but there's commands that you need to know and add in to the switch port. As you can see here, this is all the options that you have. So then you can apply this to a switch port, and we'll do that in a bit. But what I want to do is let's go over to switching, and let's go over to switches. Let's take a look at the iOS XE side. So we'll leave this, and we'll select the 9200L. If you recall, there was a previous video where I connected this switch and I am cloud managing it, hybrid mode. So this is an iOS XE switch that's connected to the dashboard, and I can manage it directly from the dashboard. If you missed that video, check out the channel. So let's take a look here. We can see that I have a couple devices connected. There's my out of band. So, and this out of band, if I click on it, actually, there is a policy that I have, but you can't see it there because this is configuration that is on the switch side on the iOS XE. So what I want to do is select Cloud CLI, and let's launch the terminal. It's going to have me log in. Let's connect there. There we go. Show run int G101, which is that Dell out of band that's connected there. And as you can see there, this is really the access policies, but on the iOS XE side of the house. So there's my Dell out of band. If you saw that Meraki video for the Cloud CLI, these are commands that are added in to connect, to give information up to the dashboard. Now we can see the authentication information here. So this is the 802.1x config that I'm applying on the switch port. And you can kind of see the same thing that you saw on the cloud dashboard side. So if there's a failure, I want to dump this into VLAN 1. Let's say the server's dead. I want to dump them into VLAN 1. Reinitialize the connection if the server's back up. This is the order of how I want to do things. As you can see there, MAB and .1x. Now, you probably want to have .1x first and then fail over to MAB. This is in my lab. I'm messing around, and that's a Dell out-of-band connection. I'm not doing much 802.1x here in the lab, so I'm dumping MAB first. I'm doing MAB first and then .1x. But in production, you probably want to do .1x first. And then port control auto, I'm doing MAB again, and I'm just saying that this port's an authenticator, and then there's timers. So there's some configurations here, and there's additional configurations that have not been used. So again, there's a difference whether you're doing it in iOS XE or you're doing it in the cloud in the Meraki dashboard, but in the end, you're accomplishing the same things. So if I go over to Identity Services Engine, and we'll refresh this, we'll see that there has been some authentications. And these authentications are hitting my wired MAB policy. And that's because these are out of band connections. They're just using MAB. However, I do want to test the connection with a laptop. So I have a laptop that's sitting here. I can't share it, so I'm going to put the recording into the video. But let's apply that access policy to where this laptop is connected. We'll go back. Let's find our switches. And let's select our access switch, which is where this laptop is connected. All right. And there's the port. We'll click edit here. And you can see there, access policy right now is open. I don't have a policy for this particular port with this Windows 11 Surface Pro. It's on VLAN 10 and that's it. So what I want to do is I want to drop this down, and that's where I can select my policy. I'm going to select that user access policy. There's no other changes. I will click update. Now let's jump over to see what's going on the laptop. So here we're going to be prompted to authenticate, and this is where we're going to type in our credentials. These are in Active Directory for me. I'm going to log in with the username and password. Remember, we're doing MS Chat v2 in the policy. So we're going to authenticate, and we are signed in. So now we're going to take a look at the IP address, and we should be on that VLAN IP, on the VLAN 10 IP, 172.30.10.22. Perfect. So we're connected. So let's jump over to ISE again, and let's refresh here. And we can see that I've authenticated. So there was a MAB failure there, but then we are 802.1x wired. That's the policy that I've hit. Let's click this. We can see the policy that I've hit, and we'll take a look at the policy in a second. But more importantly here, we can see authentication method .1x PEEP. So I'm just doing username and password. Now you want to move towards certificates in your environment if you can. Again, not every device is the same, right? So some devices don't support certificates. So what are you going to do with these devices? Some devices don't support PEEP, right? You might need to use MAB. So you have to take a look at each of the devices that's connected. What are these devices that are coming online that are connecting directly to your switch ports? And even for that matter, on the wireless side of the house, what's going to be connected? You have to spend some time taking a look at your environments, finding out some visibility components, right? What is in my environment and what policy do I need to apply? So this is connected successfully. Let's take a look at the policy now. We'll go back, we'll go to policy sets. If you've been following along, this looks slightly different. You see that under allowed protocols, we're allowing PEEP. That's what's selected here. We have the wired 802.1x. That's all we're looking for. There's the hits. Let's open this up. My authentication policy there is just wired 802.1x. And we're looking for MS Chat v2. So that's all selected there on the conditions. And then authorization wise, it's pretty simple, similar to what I have on the wireless side. Hey, if I'm authenticating and my username's here in Active Directory, put me into this profile. This is the result. And if we take a look at the results, it's not doing much there. So if we go to authorization profiles, and let's select our lab user auth P. We can see there I have the DACL, but the VLAN 10. So I'm keeping that on VLAN 10. This is where you can move VLANs around if you need to take a look at posture health, other things, and you need to quarantine a device because it's not acting appropriately. You can have those things happen with Cisco Identity Services Engine. This is the power of ISE. There's so much more that we can do with ISE as we continue our segmentation journey. I will see you on the next one. Thank you.